guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to...
Why does the United States support and fund Israel so much? Let's see why.
This is from the Wall Street Journal.
Israel's response in Gaza to the Hamas attacks has led to protests across the U.S. demanding a ceasefire, with many calling for an end to U.S. military aid to Israel.
If you want my money, you better listen to me.
The U.S. provides about $3.8 billion in aid to Israel every year, and since World War II, the U.S. has provided
total U.S. aid by country.
So this is not per year, this is total.
Total? Okay.
more foreign aid to Israel than any other country. But today,
wait, can I see the list? Who else is in this list?
I wonder why it's up to
the U.S. has provided more
2022 though, because that's when the war in Ukraine started. I wonder how Ukraine compares to this.
Oh yeah. Israel, Vietnam, Egypt, United Kingdom, and Iraq. Okay.
foreign aid to Israel than any other country. But today, there are increasingly vocal calls for more scrutiny of that aid from the left wing of the Democratic Party, including threats to scuttle Biden's request for $14.3 billion in additional assistance to Israel.
It's changing the nature of the discussion now. It was once frowned upon to criticize Israel publicly, and now you're seeing more and more that people are doing so, and those calls are getting louder and louder.
This is a simple request for information.
On January 16th, Senator Bernie Sanders
How
introduced...
old is this? Let me see, is this year or no? 10 months ago, okay, so it's this year. Okay.
a resolution that sought to impose conditions on continued aid to Israel.
It simply requests a report on how U.S. aid is being used. This is a very modest, common sense proposal.
I thought they would do that already, no?
I would hope so, that they, they kind of provide some sort of proof how the funds are used.
I wonder how, like, in the other structures for other countries, when you give out aid, donation, you have to know, like, where that money goes to, because how do you know it doesn't go somewhere else?
Yeah, to someone's pockets.
Yeah.
Of course. I don't think
or maybe
it's
some
unreasonable.
reporting, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
In this resolution,
I think that should be part of the deal, to be transparent.
Surely, I agree.
Israel, unless the State Department produced a report within 30 days examining whether Israel has committed human rights violations in Gaza.
What is going on in Israel right now is being done significantly with U.S. military aid.
Oh.
So the 2,000-pound bombs, which have the capability
So
of
the
wiping out
U.S. is
entire
kind of
nation.
responsible for those actions too, as well.
That's what he's alleging, yeah.
But when you give the aid, don't you, like, what is this?
I mean, if you basically
Give aid.
if you knowingly fund, human rights violations, that's what he's saying. Are they? Because they're alleging that there's some human rights violations going on, and saying are any of the American funds goes to any of that stuff. I think that's what's at issue here.
Those are American bombs.
As expected, the Senate overwhelmingly rejected Senator Sanders' resolution in a 72-11 vote.
We can and should continue to push Israel towards a targeted prosecution of the war against Hamas in Gaza, but passing this resolution does not do that. In fact, I would say it is counterproductive to it.
Are we complicit? And the answer obviously is yes, we are. And that's why I brought up this resolution, and I and other members will
I wonder what's
continue to
the
fight
counter argument for asking for transparency to where the funds go.
I don't know. To me, seems like a completely reasonable request.
for accountability from Israel.
Even though the resolution failed, it represents a historic level of scrutiny for U.S. aid to Israel.
Just the fact that the Senate is now forced to debate this issue publicly really shows that there's a changing tide. Even if it didn't go anywhere and it was overwhelmingly rejected, the fact that senators are now forced to grapple with this question publicly shows that there is increasing pressure to do more.
I wonder why was this like a taboo question to begin with? Why are we afraid to ask this question? I don't understand.
An historic moment for Zion, which is celebrated in Washington at the office of the Jewish Agency for Palestine, as a small boy runs the flag of a new Jewish state out on the sand.
Well, in 1948, the United States was the first country in the world to recognize Israel.
The United States recognizes the provisional government as the de facto authority of the new state of Israel.
But there really wasn't financial assistance attached. There was a little bit of money, loans, to help resettling all the people into Israel. Of course, this was still right after the Holocaust.
Many had suffered great hardships in the past. She, for instance, was evidently once merely a number in some Nazi Belsen.
Which was an important part of the context for the creation of Israel.
In the 1950s and 60s, the U.S. provided the new country with economic aid, but by the early 1970s, U.S. aid became mostly military assistance.
Oh, so they already had a history of doing that.
Yeah, so
they say, why are you being funny now?
Basically, I think so.
Ah.
In 1973, two Soviet client states, Egypt and Syria, launched a coordinated surprise attack on Israeli forces in the Sinai and the Golan Heights. Israel ultimately repelled the attacks and regained lost ground, but only after the U.S. made the decision to supply the Israeli military.
Are you satisfied with the amount of equipment you're getting from the United States? I'm very happy with what we are getting.
In 1973, Israel was defending itself against two Soviet clients. That created an incentive for the United States and Israel to align more closely. The real pivot came after the Camp David Agreement.
Signed at the White House by the leaders of Egypt, Israel, and the United States. After decades of mistrust and warfare, it looks as if American diplomacy has finally made possible a formal peace treaty between the two old adversaries.
That really created a very different relationship with Israel, a very different American security commitment to Israel. And it was also the 1970s where Israel went from being a somewhat partisan, mostly democratic cause to being a bipartisan national issue.
For decades, U.S. economic aid to Israel helped support the Israeli economy, but since the rapid expansion of Israel's economy in the 1990s, U.S. economic aid to Israel began to gradually phase out in the 21st century.
So there was a shift over time, agreed to by both sides.
I think I get why they're, sending military aid. They probably want to test out the American guns in there. I don't know, because we do make a lot of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So
to
I think
test out?
Either test out or to sell straight up. Because if there isn't many options to buy, you basically kind of give Israel money and they have to buy it back from you, so the money stays with you. But I don't know.
Where the American assistance to Israel, which had been balanced after the Camp David Agreement in 1979 between economic and military assistance, became only military assistance.
Part of America's strategy in the Middle East is ensuring that Israel maintains a qualitative military edge over its neighbors. This approach involves giving Israel first access to, or more advanced versions of, U.S. defense technology. It also offsets military sales to its neighbors, with increased weapons packages or military aid to Israel.
What this means is that when the neighbors want to buy a weapons system, the United States often has to arrange to also sell that weapons system to Israel.
Why?
Annual foreign military financing grants from the U.S. represent about 16% of the Israeli military budget.
Let me share with you why making sure Israel and Ukraine succeed is vital for America's national security. History has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death and more destruction. In Israel, we must make sure that they have what they need to protect their people today and always.
Last year,
you didn't really answer the question though. I feel like I didn't get how this affects us.
What do you mean?
Like Americans. I feel like he just kind of beat around the bush a little bit.
For me, how I understanding is that they want to make sure that their relations with Israel stay close and they don't lose that friendship, and that Israel doesn't turn to another new friend that's opposed the U.S. That's how I'm taking it.
What kind of friendship is that? We basically gave them for 70 years. We gave them all this aid. All of a sudden, they snap and switch them back.
No, things can change. Yeah, things can change. If a better partnership forms or it presents itself too.
We don't need that partnership.
Biden
It's a one-sided partnership to me.
Requested $14.3 billion in additional assistance to Israel. A $14 billion funding request would provide an additional $10.6 billion for the Pentagon to better equip Israel. The U.S. military response to the Hamas attack includes ammunition and interceptors to replenish Israel's Iron Dome system, which is the bedrock of the country's defense.
Israel and America are connected now and forever.
Historically, U.S. aid packages to Israel have faced little trouble getting through Congress because Israel has long enjoyed bipartisan support.
Peace requires
bipartisan support, and also look at the amounts. I used to get 2.5 billion, whatever, and now 3 billion for. Now this is 14, like
50 billion.
Yeah, like 4 times more than usual.
Compromise, but we will never ask Israel to compromise its security. Can't do that.
There has been remarkably strong bipartisan support for aid to Israel, but for the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen increasing signs, certainly on the Democratic side in Congress, that maybe it needs to be qualified, maybe it needs to be conditioned in some way
Despite the different mood in Congress, it remains likely that Biden's new security package to Israel will pass the Senate.
Israel has to
I don't
end
know,
the
if
threat
it
of
was me handing out this money, I would always have it qualified because I need to know what you're doing. Well, like, what am I funding exactly? Because whatever I give the money to support for someone else, it also reflects back to me, and I can have repercussions of this too.
Yeah.
Hamas. Hamas is evil. If Hamas is left to its own devices, they will do to Israelis everywhere in Israel what they did to Israelis on the along the Gaza Strip.
We're going to support our close friend and ally, Israel.
The U.S. has decided.
So what they're basically saying is Hamas would start coming here and, you know, try to do their attacks here. Is that's why I guess they're trying to fund to prevent that? That's how I understand it, because it seems like that what they're claiming is Hamas doesn't just have the problem for the territory, they have a problem with Israelis as people, like as a nation, like kind of like as a nation, I guess, as a, I don't know what to call them, because they're not like a race, but
a group.
A group, yeah, I guess Israelis as a group.
That providing aid to Israel is just a fixture in its foreign policy. One thing that I have talked to officials about in recent weeks is, you know, are there going to be conditions at any point? You criticize Israel's actions. So what do you tell them behind the scenes to sort of hold them accountable? Would you withhold military aid? And the answer I get generally is no. It's not even a question.
For his part, Senator Sanders intends to continue scrutinizing the military assistance the U.S. provides to Israel.
Do not count me in to give another $10 billion to a right-wing extremist government in Israel.
It's a thought that I can tell you.
That's interesting that the
Absolutely.
government can just lend out large sums of money and not ask any questions of what they're doing with this money. Because for people who are living in the country itself, you go through a lot of hoops just to secure just a small loan, like for $5,000.
I also know what interesting what you just said. Listen,
To a right-wing extremist government in
I honestly feel like there's a little hypocrisy going on here. He doesn't want to give the money because it's a right-wing government. Because, you know, he's like super left. I feel like if it was like a left-wing government in Israel, he wouldn't have no problem. It seems like it was never a problem until the government turned right-wing extremists. So there's a little hypocrisy going on in what he's doing, though, I feel like. Because we saw historically, it never and he's been a senator for what, 20, 30 years? He never had a problem with it until now. Right-wing extremism, but just the words he chose to use. I don't know.
Israel.
It's a thought that I can tell you absolutely that there are many more members of the Senate who are really upset about what.
Not really. It was voted 72 to 21 or something like that. There's not that members that upset.
What's going on in Gaza right now.
I don't think they're upset.
Can I see the comments?
Interesting video. Kind of answered why. It's oh
Are you
shit.
work?
I clicked on another video. Hold up. Yeah. So answered the question, why does your support? I understand the history now.
Because they always have support.
Oh, the comments are turned off. Oop.
Oh.
So yeah, I get it historically, and I guess like I understand why they want to send more now to kind of prevent the attacks, I guess, here that potentially could happen. Will it happen? I mean, I think we should worry about.
I think it's difficult to ask questions now if they never asked questions before.
That's
Because it
interesting.
creates a funny relationship.
Yeah, that's such an interesting
I don't
situation.
know. I feel like it's a little bit enabling. It to me looked a little bit of a toxic relationship.
I do feel it's a little one-sided too. But
I don't know. I don't feel too comfortable.
I don't know. Yeah, like it explained why. Like why it supports. I get why it supports, but it didn't pick a side. Whether like I don't know. Like I don't know how to feel about this with this information. I don't know what to do with it now.
But now going back to the other video where Trump is upset that countries are not carrying their weight in economic defense.
Right. Yeah.
How come it's like pretty much you give a special treatment to Israel?
Right. That's a good point.
So I think it's like I can see on the other end why people recommend this video because. Okay, how do you feel like, why not the countries are not carrying their weight?
Yeah, why is Israel not carrying their own weight?
How come Israel is unable to do so?
Yeah, Israel should be carrying their own weight.
Or is it because they're at like a war inside, that they're incapable to operate normally like other countries are? Is that the caveat, or what's the rationale to that? Because this amount of money is like a lot, 15 billion, he said here, for what they're asking in the other one for the EU to, I don't know what was
it's
the
2% of GDP. So I cannot tell you
the number of that. I can't imagine countering 15 billion. I think you picking and choosing where you're upset with your money, because 15 billion is a lot. So what you're complaining about the EU not carrying their weight and that US wants to pull out, it seems kind of funny to me.
Yeah, this isn't.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know. As I said, I don't really know.
Because aside from what's going on, like the actual crisis at hand, look at it. U.S. is hypocritical to where they're putting their money. So where is their priority? Their priority is pretty much picking and choosing who's the better alliance. And I think it can be viewed as one-sided for the U.S. because U.S. doesn't want the war, Hamas or whoever who is fighting, to come to U.S. soil.
Well, why don't we just make our borders stronger so they don't come? Period. Why we send money there, invest that money there?
But then maybe 15 billion is nothing to have Israel be a war zone, as opposed to investing more money to protect U.S. borders, because U.S. borders is quite vast. It's large to protect.
Right, but that would be killing two birds with one stone, though, because we have to protect Trump is saying, oh, he won't protect the border anyway, so just take that 15 billion, put it back, and reinvest back here. I don't know. This is such an interesting. I don't really know what to do with this information. I don't know how to feel about it.
Me either, because to me, naturally, I would because how I see with the EU and U.S. involvement, saying everyone to have their funding, they kind of have like a contract. They have like goals written down to what's the expectations.
Yeah,
but with this,
money and
with Israel, there's no kind of expectations. It's kind of, we had this long-standing relationship where I give you money, but I don't really ask questions of what you do with it. You do with it, and pretty much, if you need more, I can fund and continue to fund more. And we see the shift where it was before economic aid, shifting now that goes down, but military aid has gone up. So it's like the priorities in Israel is no longer focusing on its economy or growing as a country, where you have people, because when people are able to feed, to have home, they're much more happier. But if they're in constant state of war, they're always going to need money to fund to fight each other than to work with each other.
That's what I was kind of thinking too. It feels like we're not teaching them to fish, we keep giving them the fish. Like at some point you gotta cut it off. Like at some point you even cut off your own child off. Like okay, we have to go get a job. Like you can't. So this has to happen too. Like it can be a crutch forever. Like 70 fucking years. Like how much? Like I get it. Help recover, post World War II, I get
to
that.
Rebuild the buildings and
but
everything.
At some point you gotta cut the cord.
But you can't give the supplies to bomb these buildings.
I don't know. Yeah, this is.
Instead, you invest economically to kind of have people be able to work, to fend for themselves.
Right. If anything, maybe
to flourish.
Maybe give like discounts to import goods from Israel, made in Israel, something like that. Give some sort of economic discounts, but funding. Whatever they're funding is, but not even know what they're funding. Like, how do you not know where the money is going?
It seems like this is gonna be something that continues on, and I think the topic, because groups don't like each other, is the distraction. I think the focus should be the ultimate goal as a whole, for Israel, which is to have people to be able to flourish and not worry that they're going to be bombed, to know that they can structure a plan to plan for the future in Israel and grow, to be self-sustaining. Because I think that U.S., if they continue to fund, they're kind of still involved in what's going on with Israel, to be able to have like a discussion, maybe we should pull aid, maybe we should give aid. It shouldn't be this way. There should be a plan, execute the plan, and then let the state govern itself and rely on its own self. But then to make a counter statement to say, other countries should carry their weight in terms of military defense, that's weird.
Yeah, it is hypocritical.
That's so interesting. Guys, we just regular people. Don't drag us in these comments, because if you do, I'm gonna turn up the comments to just like Wall Street Journal. Because we need peace, and ultimately we want everyone to share kindness and to thrive and to do well in life. Okay, let's not make life more complicated. So as always, guys, let us know your thoughts. We're adults. We don't monitor adults in the comment section. So let's have a nice discussion. And as always, share as much kindness as possible.